In the year 1998 till about 2002, I was a member of blackplanet.com and a later part blackvoices.com. Basically, this was long before YouTube, long before social media like Facebook, Twitter, blog, stuff like that, long before Google+. It was blackplanet.com and blackvoices.com. In both of those sites, they also had a forum section. And in that forum section, there were different subsections. Like some would deal with health and beauty, some would deal with technology, some would deal with cars, and then of course some would be religion. And in the religious subsection, there were subcategories like Christianity, Catholicism, Rastafarianism, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witness, etc., etc. So you can pick whichever one you want to join, and you can talk to people who are like-minded. I don't remember them having a Hebrew Israelite category, but in the year around 2000, I was debating with Hebrew Israelites. This is my experience from then to now. Back then, not a single one of them cursed. Actually, in fact, one person cursed. And that was somebody with the alias of Israel for me. I remember his real name as well. By some off chance, he ever even sees this video, because here we are 17 years later. His initials are M.A. I'm not going to say his real name online. First name begins with an N. Last name begins with an A. Mike Alpha. He cursed, but he only cursed because he was angry, because whatever it was he was saying, I was pushing back. And he just couldn't get around it. And then and it wasn't even like a big curse word. It was ASS. You know, but even then that was like a big no-no back in those days. But then he admitted, he's going through a lot in his life. He's been slipping in his religious beliefs, etc., etc. But I'm only mentioning that because if you compare that to what you see today, again, this is the evolution of Hebrew Israelism. None of them were cursing. No one in Black Planet, no one in Black Voices, none of those Hebrew Israelites. And there wasn't a whole lot of them either. It's maybe like 10 of them total between both sites. But either way, none of them were cursing. None of them definitely were not going around talking about raping white people. They certainly were not talking about killing white kids. None of them were talking about there's going to be slavery and death and all this other stuff when the Messiah returns. The only thing that they were speaking about primarily is because Hebrew Israelism is actually an offshoot of the failed Sacred Names movement, or the Hebrew Names movement, call it whichever one you want. What they were saying back then, 15, 20 years ago, is you have to speak Hebrew. If you don't say the Hebrew name of God, God's not going to hear you. That was their primary argument. It wasn't Esau is white and Hebrews are black and there's a black Messiah and he's going to just save all African Americans. I mean, that craziness was not coming out of their mouth 15, 20 years ago. Again, I'm talking from my experiences. And in those days, Black Planet and Black Voices, that was a global platform, because anybody can become a member. Just like YouTube now is a global platform. Anybody can pretty much do whatever. So that stuff didn't exist back then. And I've kind of put the pieces together. If you're telling people that they have to speak Hebrew, the second they look at the Hebrew alphabet, they're going to say, wait a minute, this stuff looks like Chinese. It's not going to be interesting to them. They're going to be like, nah, this ain't for me, and they're going to walk away. It's not attractive. But up to maybe like 10 years ago, 5 to 10 years ago, all of a sudden it's, the white man is the devil, and we're going to pay them back for slavery and all this other stuff. And the next thing you know, Every uneducated thug with the Bible came running. Don't have a clue what the Bible says, but all of a sudden, you got all these dull-witted, uneducated African-American men who were just basically living in their echo chamber, saying the same thing. And one person says something, the other person just repeats them. And that's why they're all easily refuted, because if you refute one, you might as well just refute 1,000. Because the same lie is refuted the same way. It's easy to do. So that's my experience. I can't, what other people like, you know, and I don't follow these guys, but I see them on social media, like G-Man, G-Consciousness, Soldiers of God, the other guy, Malone, whatever his name is. You know, they're talking a lot about stuff, which is okay. If that's how they want to approach it, that's perfectly fine. But they weren't around 15, 20 years ago. They don't even know how this stuff started. In fact, every single one of these camps, where were they in 2000? To me, every single one of these camps, they're scrubs led by scrubs. They're all scrubs to me. And I'm not saying that with pride. It's just a fact. 2,000 years ago, who was talking about GMS? Nobody. In 2000, I mean, not 2,000 years ago, but in the year 2000. 15, 20 years ago. Nobody was mentioning GMS. Who was talking about IUIC? What was Nathaniel even doing as an occupation in 2000? Nobody was talking about IUIC. It didn't exist. What about GOCC? Now, I know Rakar comes out of ISUPK, and I'll do ISUPK last. He wasn't around. GOCC wasn't around. 2000. Nobody was talking about it. AOC? HOC? This PastorDowell? Where were they in 2000? And this other guy, this bald-headed dude with the glasses, Yarasalam, I think he calls himself. I'd love to get my hands on him in a debate, but yeah, where was he? Nowhere around. And then the Sicarii group, for example, I've heard, I didn't even know who Sicarii was until they started doing something with Dr. White, making videos about him, but I've heard this guy's 25 years old, or something like that. That means he wasn't even 10 when I started. Actually, I didn't start then. It just so happens I started debating Hebrew Israelites then. But I was born into this. I was born into Christendom. I have been exposed since I was a boy. Because of my father's position and my father's peers. And because of who my mother was. I was born into this. So he wasn't even a teenager. And that's the thing with a lot of you people on social media. Just because somebody has a camera and a mic, you think that makes them your elders. Not a single one of these guys are elders to me. They're all scrubs. They're all just coming into this, and because they have a video and a camera and they make videos, to you, they're your leaders. And they, well, maybe not your leaders, but your elders. Because the scriptures say that in the last days, people will have itching ears, and they will gather leaders unto themselves. Because you want the lies and you want the delusions. That's what you want to believe. If you want to believe in racism and all that stuff, well, you're going to gather those sort of people together to yourself. That's end-time prophecies. And this is going on right now. You're actually a puppet of prophecy, and you don't even know it. But where were these guys? And in fact, just thinking about it, 25 years old. I thought that dude was probably like 37, 38. I'm looking at these guys, and again, I'll get to ISUPK last. I'm looking at these guys and I'm saying they look so beat up, like so old and so worn out. I mean, I guess trying to maintain a lie and a delusion must be wearisome on the body, because these guys look old, older than what they are. I'm past 40. I'm not gonna say my exact age, but I'm past 40. In fact, in my prime-ish, between 29 and maybe 31, I don't even know if I can post pictures, but I'll try. Well, that's me at what, 29? Assuming I even was able to post a picture. And if I can post another picture, it's probably me around 36. These guys in their 20s looking like they're almost 40. It's amazing. So anyway, where was Judah Mobile? Nowhere around. Where was these liars, Deuteronomy28.org, talking about he's going to debate people? He challenged me to a debate. I took him up on it, but it turned out to not be a debate. It was a Q&A session where he's going to ask me questions. I can pick my own moderator, pick my own judges, pick my own panel, my own location. When he said that, I was like, wait a minute, this is clearly either a guy who don't know what he's talking about or he's never had a debate in his life. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that, because when you lose, I don't want you saying that it was a biased panel. We got to be fair. You pick a judge, I pick a judge, and let those two judges agree on a third judge. It was madness. I said, that's not a debate, that's a Q&A session. That's question answer. And then he wanted me to present pictures. He fails to realize that my answers predate the invention of the camera. He has no idea. Anyway, that's Deuteronomy28.org. They're lying about some sort of debate and they'll pay $100,000. Somebody challenged me on YouTube. I thought it was a joke at first. I looked it up and then I accepted. Turns out it's not even a debate. It's a Q&A session. So that's false advertisement. Lastly, ISUPK. Johanna says that they've been around for at least 30 years. Okay, cool. He can use that as a bragging right to other camps. It's perfectly fine. He can tell other camps, I was here first. He's probably telling the truth. I have no problem with that. But I'm not them. You can't really fool me the way you fool them, because the reality is 15, 20 years ago, nobody was talking about any sort of General Johanna. Again, I'm not from New York. I don't live in New York. Whatever you guys did in your little hole in the inner city of some New York ghetto, okay, you existed there. But nobody on Black Planet, nobody on Black Voices ever said anything about ISUPK or Johanna. So yeah, you might have existed, but nobody knew who you was. Nobody, I mean, literally 0 people ever mentioned ISUPK. So you may say you've been around longer than these other camps, but the reality is you're still a scrub yourself. Nobody knew who you was back then. So anyway, that's my experience of dealing with Hebrew Israelites.